Welcome everyone to my very first interview of my new series called The Aliveness Habit. My name is Alexandra Howard. I'm the founder of Mind Mood Alive, a coaching practice that helps people come alive in mind and mood so they can live in vibrant flow and ease every day. And this interview series was born from a desire to just simplify and sort of demystify the experience of aliveness and crack the code on what it means to feel alive, for each of us to feel alive, and then just inspire some simple everyday habits and practices that can help us along. So this series matters to me personally because I feel that while we may all have a heartbeat and breath, and we might be ticking off boxes every day, and those things might tell us that we are active living beings, it doesn't necessarily translate into feeling alive. And that's what I'm interested in exploring, because I believe that's an essential human requirement for claiming a life that you love. So I can think of no better person than to introduce my guest today, Jason Dorland. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation, Jason. Jason's life path is very, very colorful. He's a devoted husband and father. He's become a good friend of mine and a colleague. He's an athlete and an Olympian, having rowed in the '88 Seoul Olympics, after which he transitioned into the world of high performance coaching. He's an artist and a thought leader and a teacher and a writer en route to publishing his third book this year. So Jason, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Alex.
Yeah, I love that you're here because I know that the journey, particularly your athletic journey, hasn't always felt alive for you on the inside. And so I think that, you're a perfect first guest for me. And so I'm curious, I thought I'd just throw the question out there for you. You know, how has the word aliveness evolved for you, and what does that word mean for you today?
Wow, that's a biggie. But it's interesting you talk about the rowing piece, because when I was a young teenage boy and I got into rowing, and it was a family thing. My granddad, my dad, my older brothers. So it wasn't expected, but I did. I followed all of those footsteps, and there was an aliveness to that, right? There was an excitement, and sitting in class all day long, just just waiting until even training, even through the winter, the dryland training. I loved it, and I felt alive because it was a community for me. We were in many ways misfits because rowing is an uncomfortable sport and it attracts some strange cats, and but we all found ourselves there and belonging to this really cool group, and that in itself was a big draw. And but then it got serious, right? Then I got a scholarship to the States, and there was expectation, and then I got on the national team, and there was incredible expectation. And then going to the Olympics in the men's 8 as the defending Olympic champions from '84, the expectation was palpable. And so that's really when the aliveness, funny enough, fell out of it for me, right? And rowing was really just a vehicle to achieve what I was in pursuit of, which was the gold medal. And so when it became a chase, the aliveness died, for lack of a better term. And so that's how I would have experienced aliveness in the sport. And so I retired afterwards, because it wasn't something that brought me any sort of happiness anymore.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love how you shared the community aspect that obviously was very palpable for you at the start. Did the expectation and the chase, did that overpower that community aspect? Did you feel in community later on? Or
I think when you're a teenager, 16, 17, 18, those are big years, right? And I think some of the boys that I met in that time were important to me at that time. Now, mind you, I'm still friends with a lot of the national team guys I rode with. But when you get on the national team, it's a different gig, right? Your teammates become your competitors at a very high level. And so because of how I was raised or coached to perceive competitors, i.e. the enemy, in times of selection, these teammates became my enemies. And so it was a constant switch between friend and foe in my mind. And that was exhausting and proved ultimately to be toxic. And so I just, the community wasn't as tight. There's just no way it was.
It shifted. It turned into something. It turned into something different, and something that actually, in fact, was killing your aliveness and not. So
I wasn't aware of that at the time, but in reflection, that I would say that's an honest assessment.
So what does that mean? What does the word mean for you today?
Well, I've still found aliveness in rowing. Like when I got into coaching, my second iteration, my first iteration, it was just an extension of my athletic career where winning was everything. And I was a toxic coach, quite honestly. But when I came back to it with a different perspective, with a view as it was about the athlete, not about me. I was in service of those athletes. I was journey-centric, athlete-centric. It was just a complete 180 from what I had, from who I was as an athlete. And in that shift, the aliveness came back. The allure wasn't winning anymore. It was, I got such a buzz out of working with these young boys, right? And watching lights go on and watching them achieve things that they didn't think they could. And then the community of that, I was, I guess when I got into that 30s, 40s, and I don't know, there's something so mischievous and lovely and attractive and beautiful and awkward and about hanging around teenage boys. It's just such a bizarre age, right? For many of them, because they're inappropriate and they're egocentric and, and they're insecure, but they're beautiful, right? They're just beautiful. They're in process, right? They're figuring it out. And to have the privilege of having an impact on that figuring it out, that's what brought me the aliveness in coaching, right? Was to have the privilege of playing a role, right? Of having them let you into their life. That was being alive for me. And now that I'm not coaching rowing anymore, it is the one and only thing I miss, right?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So it's sort of like a being in service of their growth, of their journey, being part of, being a witness to it, being a part of that journey for them is obviously an area that you discovered and that you came alive in that space. What was that feeling for you? How did you know that you were alive?
Well, I think, very much like flow state, right? It is that state where things are happening and there's synergy and it's just, everything's coming together and moving forward. And, and as a creative, there was a challenge, a creative challenge to rowing, because the technique of rowing is such that, to get 4 or 8 bodies doing the same thing or as close to the same thing at the same time requires a fair chunk of work, right? And so I saw that as a creative process. So my analogy was always, in the fall, in September, you were handed a piece of clay, and for the following 10 months, each day you got to come to that piece of clay and work it and make changes and take parts away and add parts to it. And then 10 months later, you sort of put it out as, okay, here, this is what I've worked on for 10 months, or, with these young boys. And that's an incredible creative process. And so that was an allure for me as well, right? Is what can I do with this? I've got eight or however many boys, very different bodies, some of them, different mindsets, different approaches, different reasons. How do I work with them to put them on point, right? And so that was fun, for lack of a better term. It was just fun, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think the fun aspect is often, it's a very overlooked aspect of the experience of aliveness.
Yeah.
And I think that the fun, I don't know, for whatever reason, I mean, it's kind of weird because we're so hardwired for play.
Right.
It's sort of bizarre that
Right.
it's the one thing that gets dropped from
Right.
our process and from our experience. And
Right.
I mean, it sounds like in your experience, you sort of started out having fun and being playful or whatever, and then it just shifted and changed and became something else entirely. And it sounds like it's that chase, it's when we land in outcome and we live in outcome and we live in that forward pacing state in our minds, when we seem to get into the most trouble, and where our aliveness just gets really really killed, really.
Totally
Um,
fair. And I would say now, for me, it's an acid test at this stage in my life. If fun isn't
yeah.
part of it, then I'm out, right? I'm
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. And how do you know
I
you're
just,
having fun though?
right.
What is
How
that?
do I know when I'm having fun?
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it's not a moment where I have to ask myself. It's just a feeling, right? You know, when you are, to use your word, when you feel alive. At this stage of my game, I know what makes me feel alive. And I just figure with the time I've got left, I'm not gonna spend that time doing things or being with people who don't give me that feeling, right? Who don't elicit that feeling in me of feeling alive.
Sure.
And part of feeling alive is for sure having fun, right?
Yeah. So. And where do you feel that you block your receiving that experience of aliveness in its entirety? Is there anywhere that you feel blocked in that?
Well, I think, that's a great question. I think, back to our development, right? Our journeys. And for me, like all of us, I've got old stories. And so, a lot of what allowed or what resulted in that initial fun or aliveness of rowing to disappear or transition, perhaps, was the focus on outcome, right? Winning an Olympic gold medal became the focus.
Yeah.
And so what I find today, that guy still lives in me. It's not like I got rid of him. He's still with me, and he still loves the chase, and he still loves accomplishing stuff. But I find that when I hand the wheel over to him, or when he wants to take the wheel, that's when things can get prickly. And so it's really just about having that self-awareness to know, okay, hold on a second. This is starting to mean more. The outcome of this pursuit, of this endeavor, is starting to mean more than its engagement, than the practice of just being here. And when that starts to sway, that's when I'm able to sort of pull it back and refocus and go, hold on a second here, right? Like, I get where you're heading and I understand the allure of that, but let's not lose sight of the day-to-day of the practice. And so,
I get that.
And because I fell so hard after Soul, it's an easy reminder to go to, okay, so this is a pattern, bud. And if you want to go down that road, fair enough. But, from past experience that it didn't turn out all that well. Right. So that's an easy one for me.
Yeah, sure. And what are some of the practices that you engage in order to keep you centered in that in that space of aliveness for you?
Yeah, for me, journaling is been, you know, it's the, like Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. When
Mm-hmm.
Robin, who's my wife and partner now, you know, when she gave me that book in 1997, and I poo-pooed it as self-help garbage and kind of flaky and whatever. And again, that was a story. But when I got past that and just got into this morning ritual of writing, and then realizing and appreciating what I was writing about and going, holy crap, I can't believe I just wrote that down. Those were moments, right? And those moments allowed me to bring stuff up and process it.
Yeah.
And it's still alive today. I mean, I wrote this morning, I write every morning. And I find journaling is, for me, the most powerful self-awareness tool that I have in my toolkit.
Yeah.
And I mean, meditation, we have a plant-based diet. I watch what I eat. I spend time in the woods. I run with we have dogs, which are huge in terms of just that piece. Working out, spending time on my own is a biggie. I love alone time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are all little bits.
Yeah. And I really love that, you know, I think everybody has to own their own process, their own, what works for them. And I mean, that's really the essence of the work that we do, right? It's just owning your own process, and whatever that is in your toolkit or your menu of choice. Everybody has the right, the privilege of creating that for themselves.
Sure.
And I often find that there's sort of one thing that is like the non-negotiable, and it sounds like it's the journaling for you, which is like the core, you know, the core practice that keeps you in alignment. And I often find in my own practice with my clients that, you know, journaling can be a really difficult thing to do if you're not into writing, you know, and yet it's so powerful. And I've often been asked the question, well, what do you write about? You know, what do you do? So I'm going to put the question out to you, because I think these are like the nuances that might click for somebody. Like, what do you actually write about?
Right. And I think you touch on an important piece, is that, you know, when we work with our clients, we put out all of these tools, and people gravitate or attracted to certain pieces, right? And some work for others. Like if I don't meditate for a couple of weeks, it doesn't impact me the way not journaling would impact me. So
Right. Yeah.
So when I'm doing everything together, it's awesome. But the journaling one, what I find, and we get that question too, you know, well, what the hell I'm going to sit down and write? Like, what am I writing about? And that's the piece. It's not like I'm writing anything that I'm going to put up as a blog, or it doesn't have to be eloquent or deep or anything. In fact, there are times when, and Julia Cameron used to invite people, like, I have no freaking idea what I'm writing about, and I don't even know why I'm doing, like, you just write.
Yeah.
And then doing that it creates clarity or room, if you will, for something else to surface and come forward. And it works every time. Like, it just works every time. Or I just step into a gratitude sentence or two about how something that happened the day before, or whatever that I'm grateful for, or even saying I'm grateful for Robin or Matea, our daughter, or the dogs, or my health, or whatever. So just, I mean, and that can happen every day. There's nothing wrong with having a gratitude practice, but just kicking into those gives room for other stuff to surface. And sometimes I go to the writing knowing that what I want to sort out. And sometimes I will, or sometimes something else will push itself onto the page, if you will. And you know, sometimes I just never know what's going to come up.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think it's a really, really powerful practice. And you know, I think it's something that I always try and engage myself as well. I mean, I journal, but I don't write. I actually I have a separate system and little online thing that it's just for me, but I
Right.
I write it on my my computer.
Okay.
But it's like owning whatever works for you and just
Yeah.
do that, and it's enough, and it's right, and it's perfect.
Right.
And
And I, and my analogy is it's like going and having a coffee or a beer or
mhm,
whatever, or going for a
mhm.
walk with yourself.
Yep.
And this forces the conversation, right?
Yeah. I love that.
So it
Mhm.
it it really allows you time to sit down with yourself. And the neat thing is sometimes I catch I'll be writing, and then all of a sudden I'm writing in the third person. And I just go, holy crap, when did that happen? And that's always a really cool moment.
Hmm.
And then I just rip up the paper and I throw it in the recycle bin, and that's it.
Mm.
And by ripping it up, it also gives me the freedom to write about whatever the hell I want, right? It's not like I'm writing something and going, oh shit, I hope nobody finds this,
Yeah.
right? And so that just gives me that added safety.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah. So what's important to you about being able to source, support, and sustain your own aliveness?
Whew. Uh, well, I guess for me, it's just about enjoying life, right? So if I'm not feeling alive, then uh, that's a major red flag, right? And
What
so,
happens? What is a Jason that's not alive? What is that? Who is that?
well, he's flat. I know that, and I've probably not experienced him as being flat as I have as much as I have in the last 2 years, right?
Mhm.
Since all of the restrictions and lockdowns and whatever, there's been some flat days, right? And
Mhm.
so, um, just knowing that, just recognizing it, not making it mean there's something wrong with me or I'm broken or what have you. Just knowing that that's an ebb and flow
Mhm.
of life, and we're at a time in history where it's flowing a little more than it normally does, right? And then just resorting back to those to my tools, writing about it in my journal, getting out for a run big time, changing my state, or working out. Like I always find, if I'm in those flat moments, doing something that I know will change my state, which is spending time with the dogs, running on the trails, right? Like I can't think of a time where I've got back from a run and not felt better. So
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, and I think you touch on an interesting point because, aliveness isn't necessarily the euphoric
no, not
adrenaline
at all.
inducing states that we maybe associate with aliveness. There's
Right.
that flat state that you also talk about. So long as you are in connection with that flat state and you're allowing that flat state to express itself, I think there's also something to be said for there to be a version of aliveness that can be expressed there as well.
No doubt. And it's, to me, it's just information, right?
Hmm.
It's like, as long as we don't make it mean anything and we just
Hmm.
go, oh, okay. So I
Yep.
feel like I'm not rocking it today. And why is that? And am I okay with that? Can I just be with that? And yeah, and I've learned at this stage to just let it
Let
do
it
its
be.
thing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I
not make
think
it mean
that's
there's
I think
something.
that's a huge, as you know, and I mean it's a big human challenge, and it's often what kills our aliveness and blocks, is that permit it's like the permission to not feel or not be or not experience what we're experiencing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the practice of allowing for there to be all the full spectrum of experience to be present at any given
Right.
moment, and
Right.
allowing that to be part of your experience of aliveness.
Fair.
Yeah, so I love that perspective. Well, we're going to wrap up our interview today, and I've so appreciated your words and your wisdom and your perspectives, and I just thought I'd finish with a final question of what's one thing that you would like to people to know about the experience of aliveness, or what's one thing that you'd like to leave us with today?
Yeah, I think for me, when I get into trouble, it's invariably when I'm comparing, right? When I see my life versus others, and that can be a slippery slope, right? And I just don't know that anything good ever comes out of comparison, right?
So true.
And so it's just I think that's the piece, right? Is to not buy into the comparison garbage, and to know that, okay, there's information in the lives of others. Like, it's not to say that you write off what others are doing and the lives they're having and the things that you go, okay, well, how did they do? Like, there's information in that, but to compare is where we really get ourselves in trouble, because it's all ego, right? And that's where we get ourselves into trouble. So I think it's important to be aware of others and the lives of others and their strategies and their ways of being and all that kind of stuff, and to take on and utilize what we think might work for us. I think all that's important, but the comparison piece is that's a prickly.
It's an aliveness killer. I think it's at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah. That's a buzzkill if there ever was.
It's a total buzzkill, and it's another one of those human challenges. It's so hard to stay out of that bucket, but it's good to recognize it. So I really appreciate you sharing that, because it's absolutely bang on. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here, for sharing and participating with me. And it's been a real pleasure, Jason. Thank you.
You betcha. My pleasure as well. Thanks, Alex.
You're welcome.